Well, a lot of people have said to me, oh, you're anti-EV. I'm not anti-EV. I think you should have a choice. I'm pro-truth. I think that people really need to know the facts before you make a decision on anything. Whether you're buying your first collectible car, whether you're buying a house, anything, whatever it is, you need to do your homework. And I think the passion for some people is they hear what's on the news and they take it as gospel. And you have to remember that today, across the full United States, there's only 6.4% of the cars that are electric. That's it. 6.4%. To give you an idea, that's usually 16 million cars are sold a year. There's millions of cars on the road, and only 6% of them are electric. That's not a lot. You look at, okay, well, what about California? They're about 18%. There's a little more incentives in that case. And the state's trying to go all EV, and of course, New York and 17 other states are following in this very foolish move. The reason for that is people need to really take a bigger picture and look. Now, you can do your own homework. You can back up my facts, and you'll find it to be true. And you'll be maybe disappointed or disillusioned, because the truth of it is that when you're looking at a vehicle and saying it's better for the earth, it's not. If you look at a combustion engine car, or an ICE, we call ICE, internal combustion engine, from cradle to grave, that means all the parts to make what it is, to what happens at the end when it's done, and how recyclable it is more green than an electric powered vehicle. So you think, okay, what about EVs? Well, let's start from the beginning. There are 7 rare earth minerals. There's cobalt, which causes cobalt lung. So we don't mine it here, and most countries don't, because it kills people. But don't worry, they're mining it in South Africa. And who owns the mine? China. Okay, then you got lithium, same problem. The mines are owned by China. It's also hazardous. We could mine lithium here in the US, but the EPA will never let that happen. And one of the largest lithium deposits is in Nevada. But it's also on Native American land. So that's a problem. Then you're saying, okay, what else? So we got cadmium, poisonous, hazardous, mercury, make it go crazy, but also it's dangerous. You have neodymium. That's a really weird product that people don't talk about. It's a magnetic ore, and it's in every single battery. And that's the magnetic property. So first off, that is the rarest of them. There's not a lot of it. And the veins that are there under the ground are all owned by China. So, okay, so we're not beholden to the Middle East for oil. We're not being self-sufficient here in the US. Instead, we're going to be beholden to China. Okay, so as long as you know that up front. So now you got these other rare earth minerals. So what happens? They take all these minerals and they melt them together and they put them together like a birthday cake. So there it is done. It's baked. They actually are baked, and some are made in the US and some are made in other countries, but all the minerals come from other countries because we can't mine them here. We won't do it in North America. It's too hazardous, and we're not going to put people's lives and the environment at risk, but we'll do that in other countries. It's like, but the environment affects everybody. It's not just like if one country's doing something wrong, it affects all the other countries, but no one talks about this. And I have a feeling that 10 years down the road, they're all going to be like, you were right. So here's the thing. If you say this is not recyclable, because the batteries are not recyclable, I know there's a company called Redwood Materials who is working on it, but there's a couple things that you need to know. One, it's not completely recyclable. Because if I asked you to take the eggs out of a birthday cake, going back to that cake, you'd go, well, I can't. It's everywhere. Exactly. So those materials are all blended together, and they have to work in a certain way in order for each cell to be the battery for what you use, whether it be a Tesla or a Lightning or fill in the blank. And this does not, by the way, this story does not make the manufacturers happy with me. And many a times they won't give me the electric cars, so I get them from dealers, because I'm not going to play around, because I will review them all. I have no dislike for them. They're a very cool product, but you just need to know the facts. So the facts are these are not recyclable, and they can't put them in the ground. They can't send them to the moon. They're not going to send them out in the ocean. They're not going to do anything. They're going to sit in a salvage yard, and we're going to have an environmental disaster down the road, probably about 2030, because that's when all these batteries that are pulled out of cars, when they no longer have life, there's going to be no use for them. Now, if you want to be the first billion or trillionaire, you'll probably be the person that can figure out how to separate this, but right now there's no way to do that, and the hazardous properties that are within those metals are still there. So they don't just disappear when you bake them together as a cake. So now you got this battery. There are all these cells. Some are cooled by coolant, ethylene glycol. Others are cooled by other liquids. Most of them are cooled by something that's flammable, ethylene glycol, antifreeze, which is why you see that chemical chain reaction from the salt water, from the hurricanes, or cars that are flooded. When one catches fire, one cell, it heats up the next one, and it just causes a chemical chain reaction and keeps setting them off. So that's why it takes sometimes weeks and weeks for it finally to be done. And in order to recycle it, that battery, or try to, that battery has to be completely used. So it may not be good for a car. That battery has to be used on the secondary market to maybe store energy. But afterwards, when it's dead, like batteries in your remote control, you throw those in the garbage. We're probably not supposed to. Those can then be sent to a salvage yard, but they can't be sent to a salvage yard till they're completely zero. So people don't realize that. So now you got these cars and you go, don't they look cool? They're so cool. Sure they are. And what do you think those cool bodies are made of? Some sort of polycarbonate. And what's in that? Fossil fuels. So people don't think about that. So I'm going to give you just a tip on fossil fuels. It's in every single thing you touch. From a piece of paper to glass, they process medical supplies, medicine, the clothing you wear, the computers you touch. Literally every single thing you touch has some sort of product from fossil fuels. And it's mind-blowing, especially when you think about glass. You're like, glass? Yes. Even safety glass in cars, because there's a film in between, and that is made of some form of petroleum. So there's no way to get away with it 100%. So, and though it may sound great in an idea, in reality, it's never going to happen. So if you want to drive a Lada, which is a Russian piece of crap car, that's probably what you'd end up with if the government gets involved. Because they can't even handle the post office and Amtrak. I can't imagine them getting involved in the auto industry, because it's exactly what happened in the UK, and they destroyed the auto industry in the process of doing that. And they're already got their fingers in the US auto industry, which is concerning. So when you're looking at battery-powered vehicles, you should have the choice. If you want one, you should be able to buy one. If you live in an area where I live in the city, I don't travel very far. If I do, I take mass transit, whatever it is. I take a bus, a plane, whatever. Fine. You should be able to buy one if you want one. But that doesn't mean I shouldn't be able to buy a gasoline-powered vehicle, a diesel vehicle, hydrogen, which is coming online from not just BMW, but Hyundai. A bunch of different manufacturers are working on hydrogen. That's going to be next. We also have CNG, and Porsche's coming up with e-gas. Very cool. Synthetic gasoline. I'm doing a ton of research on that. It's already in pre-production. And right now, they're figuring it's going to be around $4 a gallon, but it might be cheaper. That means you can put it into your old Porsche and still drive it. You put it into your old Toyota Camry from 1980 and still drive it. And I think that's really cool that people don't realize that could be the answer. And it's synthetic, like synthetic oil. It works. I love that thought process, because people aren't going to get rid of their cars, especially collectible cars. And people are like, oh, they're going to get rid of every gasoline-powered car in the world. Really? Who do you think buys those $35 million cars at auction? People with a lot of power. And they're not about to let the government or any politician squash their passion for automobiles. It's never going to happen. So it may sound great on the surface, but there's a lot of money and power out there, and that may be okay for you, but not for them. So I don't think that's going to fly so well, because it's always this, I get it, but you don't. What's good enough for me, but not for thee. You may see some of that, and that's what we're seeing right now. So these electric cars all sound great on the surface. You have to buy a charging station. It's about $2,500. That's on you to buy, and it has to be put in by a certified electrician. That's the thing. If you try to do it yourself and you do it wrong, you could burn your house down. And it's happened a lot. And it's because people think they can do it themselves. You need a certified electrician to put it in. It's going to cost you about $5,000 all in. Now, if you have an older home, like a lot, like an old original historic home, something that's back before 1950s, you'll probably need to draw a whole new line. You may have to do a lot of new electrical work. Be prepared. So maybe you don't want to do that. Maybe you want to find charging stations. But again, not all of them work. Tesla charging stations only work with Tesla. They don't work with other cars. Although Tesla can use anything. They were supposed to change that, but hasn't happened as of today. This is the same problem I had. I had a Jaguar I-Pace. Cool. Very cool vehicle. It was a finalist for many of the awards. Drove it around. Loved the vehicle. I just wish it was gasoline powered. But I thought it was really great technology and wonderful design. And I went to plug it in. Station was dead. So I got on my app. They tell you to use whatever. I won't say the brand. I found another station. I get there, and there were two vehicles parked there. And I said, well, I'll wait. There's two charging stations. I'll wait. So, you clear out your emails. You look at your watch, and you think, okay, they're not coming back. So 20 minutes later, I go to the next station. And after going to a whole bunch of stations, I couldn't find one that was either working or one that was available. When I finally got one that was working, it wouldn't take the charge. I'm like, we're done. So I basically took the car to the hotel for the drive event I was at, and I left it with the valet, and I said, come get it. And it wasn't Jaguar's fault at all, because they can't control it. If I had a home unit, I would have plugged in. But even the hotel didn't have one. So this is a problem a lot of people have, that the charging, you get range anxiety. And not just that, is time anxiety. And there's just recently was a journalist who did a drive from Chicago to New Orleans. And they said renting an EV, it does not make a difference what it was. It was a good one. So they go and they charge and they leave. They spent more time charging on their trip to New Orleans than they did sleeping. And that person said, I'm flying back. I'm done. So typically 1 out of 5 people that buy electric cars go back to gasoline powered cars because they don't like the hassle. And people that typically own them also have a lot of money because the average cost of an electric vehicle is $66,000. So if you think you're going to get the incentive, well, that all changed with the Inflation Reduction Act and the Infrastructure Act. That all changed. It used to be $7,500 until you reached the 200 vehicle threshold, which Tesla was out, Toyota was out, and Ford was coming right up to the line and they were out. GM was already out, and now that's all changed. So the vehicle has to be built in the USA. Okay, a lot of them are. But now as of 2023, the battery has to have its rare earth minerals from the USA. Well, that's a problem because the answer is 0 cars now qualify. So why the new Nissan Ariya is an amazing looking vehicle, it doesn't qualify, and it should. So that's a problem. So now you got to find a vehicle that qualifies, and if no qualify, then what are we doing here? But don't worry, the car manufacturers raised their prices by $8,000. So while you were going to get a $7,500 credit, it now costs you $8,000 more. And there's no incentives, there's no deals, because the car manufacturers don't make money on any of these vehicles. So if they're taking a loss in every vehicle, how are they making money? Because they're in business to make money. They're accountable to their stockholders, their board of directors, to a lot of people. So if I can't afford to pay salaries, I got to let people go. And that's exactly what you're seeing is a huge cut in the auto industry. And you may think that's great, but that's jobs. And that means it impacts the economy. So there's a lot of factors that people don't think about. If you're not making money, why would you do that? If you owned a coffee shop on the corner and you were taking a loss in every cup of coffee, you wouldn't be in business long. You got to make a profit margin. And that's what business is about. And people don't realize that. They think, oh, well, the car companies can suck that up. Well, listen, they can only make so many trucks. There's a chip shortage. There's a wiring harness shortage. There's a rubber shortage. And all of this affects not just EVs. It affects everything. So the whole industry is being squashed from 2 years ago, 17.1 million vehicles. We're down to 14 million. So what does that really mean? So you lose 3 million sales in the US. The average profit margin on any vehicle is $10,000 on average across all the brands. Well, do the math. That's billions of dollars lost. You're not going to get that back. And people are going, you know what, I'll keep my car. They keep them longer. They think, you know what, I'll keep my car. I have a 2016 Porsche Cayenne diesel. I'm not getting rid of it. It doesn't make any sense. And so when you start thinking about maintaining the vehicle you have, that makes a lot more sense than buying something that's you're going to take a loss on. And for car manufacturers, they're going to make just enough to clear that EPA regulation, because if they don't comply, the punishment is billions of dollars in fines from the EPA, and they can't, so you either lose money on the car or you lose you lose tons of money either way. So either way, it's a lose or a lose for them. And so I'm sure they're kind of hoping that things change. Again, that all depends on what happens in Washington. That's a whole other conversation. But keep in mind, while you think electric vehicles are the answer, they're probably not, because down the road, cradle to grave, these vehicles are worse for the environment. They're charged with natural gas, which they don't want to use. They're charged with coal. They don't want to use it. Nuclear power, they don't want to use that. So if you think wind and solar can support it, now only about 16% of the entire usage can be supported. The entire world can only support that wind and solar 16%. So where are you going to get the rest? You're going back to candles, rolling blackouts, rolling brownouts? I think even Newsom figured that out when he said he wasn't going to shut down the last nuclear power plant in California, because they realize this could be a problem.
For a limited time, Glossett's best ever DIY ceramic coating deal is back. Last year, too many of you ordered it and it broke his site for a little while. But now, just the first 2,000 of you can get Glossett's $150 bottle of graphene ceramic coating for just $69.99, and you get a free $50 bottle of their ceramic detail spray, which makes the application a breeze. So click right now at the link in the description below to get yours.